Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And we are streaming on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe, and click the bell so that you can get notifications every time we come on live. And if you want to follow me and please be my friend on Facebook, go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. I'm streaming over there as well. And I'm on Twitter at Santita J. On Twitter at Santita J. So please, everybody, there's no reason for you not to be in touch with me. I'm even on LinkedIn. Oh, my word. Anyway, it's a joy to be with you today as we're talking about a gender gap that we're seeing in American politics, and particularly in the Black American community. So I want to know what your thinking is about it. Many people, many numbers show, many different data points show that had Stacey Abrams gotten a higher percentage of the Black vote, she might be governor. Yeah. What about the 24 plus 25% and numbers climbing of Black men who support Donald Trump? Black women, the numbers are not nearly that high. They're climbing, but not as rapidly and not as much. Is there a gender gap? Sure there is. Why is there a gender gap? We're going to dig down and really seek out some answers. We were talking in the first hour, continue on with brilliant social scientist Dwight McKee, senior advisor to presidential candidate Dr. Cornel West, and the dean of the Ma'afa Redemption Project here in Chicago at the Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. You're doing such great work with our young people. And of course, someone is calling me now. Of course, not quite. And then, of course, we've got Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Attorney Anastasia Sanat, who is the former president of the Haitian American Lawyers Association. She's one of the top immigration lawyers in the country. And the president emeritus of the Bennett College for Women, brilliant social commentator and economist, Dr. Julianne Malveaux. And I think we just had the chair of Rainbow Push and the former president of the National Bar Association, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, jump in. Whoop, whoop. This is great stuff. Boy, you and Dwight got everybody lit up. We could barely get off the air this morning as we talked about this gender gap. And so many of the headlines say it all. Trump 2020. This is from Vox. The gender gap and Black views on Trump explained. From the Atlantic magazine, why Black men and women vote so differently. From the government of all things, African American women and the 19th Amendment. But, Black women did not get included. We were not given the vote when Black men were given the vote. It's something for us to think about, everybody. And then still, as you know, Anastasia Sanat, Soror Sanat, and Soror Malveaux, even as the women of Delta Sigma Theta marched in the big suffragette march up in New York, they wanted Black women they wanted our sorors to get in the back, all the way in the back. Unbelievable.
And we didn't do it.
Of course not. Come on, this is Delta.
Exactly.
Come on now. The Democrats are losing Black men. The Moynihan report explains why. That's from the Heritage Foundation. It's a lot to unpack here. So let me start with, let's start with where we were. Let me start with you, Dr. Malveaux. Is there a gender gap in Black American politics?
Absolutely, and there always has been. I have a sibling who voted for the Orange Man, and we have had spirited conversations about it. 2020, we actually had a fist fight. Well, not quite. I threw a roll at him. I didn't intend to hit him upside the head, but that's kind of what happened.
Okay.
It got real ugly. But what he says, and then we had to sit down and talk. And he gave me 3 reasons why Black men like Trump. Number 1, entrepreneurship. They admire the man's entrepreneurial ability. Now, they don't understand. I said, do you understand how they set the table for him? So it's not like he's that smart. It's like the laws were bent toward him. But a lot of brothers admire his entrepreneurial ability. Number two, they admire the machismo. Now, I don't even want to go there, but he told me all his life he just wanted to grab a woman by the you know what. And I'm like, you're not related to me. He has four sisters. And I think that men who feel that women are getting too much feel that way. And then the third thing is the issue of economic competition. He feels, I hear him, he feels that when immigrants come and work below union wages, it basically undergirds their position in the economy. So, like I said, after we threw the rolls and rolled around the floor, had a fight, we sat down and sort of said, let's talk through this. And those were his main reasons. They like the bluster that Trump puts out there. They like the fact that they think he's a successful entrepreneur. And they like his position on immigration because folks like my brother, who used to own a construction company, felt like he couldn't compete. If he paid union wages, he couldn't compete with folks who are getting people under the table. So that was his thing in a distillation. I disagree with everything he says, but it's worth thinking about what these black men are saying. I think there's probably more. We could probably unpack more. But please let's just pour the holy water on Tim Scott. But the fact is that there are many black men who really do believe that Trump is on their side. Now, the other thing that I'm hearing from brothers, and I go out of my way to try to have the conversations, even though they get on my nerves, is that black girl magic is offensive to them. They feel like sisters are getting stuff that they're not getting, that sisters are being lifted up in the way they aren't. Now, if you look at the numbers, that's just not the case, but that's the feeling they have. And whenever on my radio show, which you allow me to pump up as always, WPFWFM.org.
Every chance you can. And of course, Daryl Jones is on with Barbara Arnwine every Tuesday on WOL at 12 noon. But when are you on again, Julianne Malveaux?
9 a.m. on Monday mornings.
Eastern Standard Time.
And whenever I had Kimberly Crenshaw on about a month ago, and we did a half hour, she and I talking, and then opened up the phones, and the vitriol that we got from brothers was disturbing to me. Why are you focusing on black women? What about black men? We have allowed massa, if you will, to divide us as a community. I mean, when black women win, black men win. When black men win, black women win. But that's not the way it's being spun. It's being spun as a competition. And it's not a competition. But that's what people are feeling. And you can't discount feelings. Your facts are facts, but feelings are feelings. And what I'm hearing from brothers is, sisters are overpowering us, taking stuff away. It's not true, but that's how they feel. So these brothers who are going for Trump,
and Sister Malveaux, if I can add this, because I think you made some very significant points, your brother made some very significant points, is that in terms of, how black men feel. And I would also add is that when you talk about black woman magic, they don't resent so much that black women are achieving. They believe that black women believe that they're achieving because of black woman magic. And so when black women, many of them get successful, it almost becomes I got successful because I have all of this black womanhood, all this black woman magic, and don't give credit to black men who put their lives on the line to help, put black women in a position to be able to do those achievements. And I think a lot of black men end up resenting that attitude, not so much the fact that black women achieve, is that many of them, once they get in that position, wear it, as a crown, as if they only did it because they had all this black woman thing going for them.
But do black men give?
I have a T-shirt that says.
No. Do black men give black women, the appropriate credit for their achievements? Right.
Many of them do, but again, they don't resent the achievement. They resent what they see as the attitude that comes out of the achievement. And so once they succeed in many ways, at least in their conversations, it become a black woman thing, and they leave any evidence of black men's investment, sacrifice, or achievement out of the mix.
But how many black men have stayed with the family in order to be recognized? How many are present in order to avoid this resentment that so many have felt? That has become a political issue for black women specifically. The degradation of the family, the isolation that black men feel, as I know, Santita, you brought it up earlier. More black men are involved with their families up until the age of 5, but after 5, what happens? You know, that's
well, no, what happens is now, wait a minute, hold on, because a lot of black women are resentful of black men, particularly if they are not with them, and that's a mama problem. So I mean, and I take umbrage with inferring with implying anything else, because I grew up with a very involved father who was busy as he could be. And I've seen St. Clair Booker, who didn't have one child from his loins, but we were children of his spirit. And there was nothing he would not do for us. I grew up around a lot of black men who were very involved with children in the most healthful of ways.
But the same thing comes to mind. Why is it that black girl magic represents in some minds, right? Not all minds of black men, but some minds, that there is no presence? Could it be that there is no presence? And could it be just that simple fact? If there was presence, there would be more women that had the ability to say, thanks to my dad, right? I think the problem is that there's a lot of women that don't have the ability to say, thanks, Dad. Like Santita Jackson and myself, and you, Dwight McKee, and you, Daryl Jones, and you, Sora Malvoy, and you, Attorney C.K. Hoffler. We have the opportunity to say, thanks, Dad. But there are so many women who achieve without being presence with their dads. So
actually, I don't have that opportunity. I do not have that opportunity. My parents divorced when I was 6. My dad was a scant presence. He only showed up when I was on stage. He died with my picture in his lapel. That's how they found out who he was. But he did not pay child support. I mean, I loved my dad and he loved me, but the divorce was so bitter that he basically did not engage with us as children. But let me say quick thing. I have a t-shirt that says, don't call a black girl magic. I worked hard for this spit and not spit. Because a lot of folks act as if black girl magic snap your fingers. We worked hard. I worked hard to get a PhD in economics. I worked hard to have everything I had. It wasn't black girl magic. I mean, sisters supported me, and I'm grateful. My sorority supported me, and I'm grateful for that. But I think a lot of brothers, the black girl magic is like we have some cabal that's excluding them, and that's just not the case.
Well, you know what? my experience is just very different. A friend of mine sent me an old family photo. And my brother Jonathan, who's in Congress now, his hand was on my shoulder. And I remember coming home that Thanksgiving. It was a particularly tough Thanksgiving for a whole lot of reasons. And I said, it's just like my brother Jonathan to be flanking me and to have his hand around my shoulder. I've just been very blessed, and I'm not alone. I am not alone. What happens with a lot of our parents is a fight between mom and dad that unfortunately children pay for. And people need to stop that, because the children come out thinking that the father does not care, and that is not true. It's just not true. It's not.
Well,
well, you just said your dad died with your picture on his lapel, so you know.
Absolutely. My grandfather died with several pictures of me in his wallet. Mine was not even his blood granddaughter.
But getting child support was like hitting lotto. It was like hitting lotto. He would pay whatever. My parents had just
what he could, right?
No. The man was the first assistant superintendent of schools in San Francisco. First black. He had money. He just chose. He was angry about the relationship, and he just chose to work it out through the kids.
And you know what? And that's and it's unfortunate, because the thing is, we never know our parents. We never know the story
We don't know
of.
the whole story. I know more of it than I should know because
Yeah,
I've known.
we all do. We all do, but you never know the. I mean, I'm a product of my parents' marriage, not a factor in it. I don't do when people ask me certain things about my parents. I'm like, hey, I don't know. That's my mother's husband. My dad and my mother's husband are two different people. My
Well, I
mom and
just
my
do think
father's wife are two different people.
when we look at the number of female-headed households, though, Santita, we have to understand that some brothers are MIA because they have to be, but some brothers are MIA because they want to be. They're taking
Yeah,
the recipients of
you
their
know what? And
marriage.
some brothers are MIA because you know what? They were in relationships that were not marriage bound anyway. I'm putting it out there.
And
Well,
some
that's
of them,
true
like
too.
Gerald, are MIA in this conversation.
Well, and CK Hopper, and so no, so I trust me, I got a handle on the show. I'm good. And having been said,
Well, you know, I'm listening. My perspective might be different, but I'm just listening.
you know,
I
but
was just when I
CK, okay, CK, I need you to come in a little closer so we can really hear you.
Can you hear me better now?
Are you on an earpiece?
No, I'm on my computer.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, just turn up the
Is the
volume if you
volume-
can, and then we are cooking with hot grease.
Is the volume?
It's a little bit better. Okay, go
let me
on. You were saying.
I'll switch.
Oh.
I can switch to my laptop. You keep on.
No,
I'll
no,
switch
no,
to
no,
my
no,
laptop.
no.
The volume
We
might
are
be better.
good. No, you go on
Okay.
and say your piece.
What I said was I was listening, but I will give my input when I do have something to say about this. I just was listening to the dialogue.
Well, then the MIA attorney Gerald Jones.
Thanks, Auntie. Thank you, Dwight, for calling me out.
Oh no, you got to take that hit too, Daryl. Come on.
But you know, when one of the things that immediately popped into my mind when I was writing notes as Dr. Malveaux was speaking, and she was talking about the black girl magic. And I think that what happens for black men, and myself included, when you hear black girl magic, you feel excluded. You know, that this doesn't include you. You know, this is all about them. It's not an us. They've made it a them. And so you want to do this on your own, okay? But then what Dr. Malveaux said, you know, at going toward the end, is what I think really wraps it all together. There was no magic involved in this.
Yeah.
You know, you put your shoulder to the grind and you earn it. And I think that when we start, using the words and using phraseology like black girl magic, that's where we start losing people and excluding people and making people feel like they're not included in what it is. You know, we understand that the overall experience, that the overall goal will move everybody forward. But when you start saying, I'm just focused on girls, on black girls, that's the only focus is black girls, you start losing some men. And so, I think that part of that exclusivity in the naming may account for some of the lack of participation you saw from some of the black men in the support in that realm.
But you know what's interesting? You never lose. Well, let me say this: you never lose women. There's an old expression that we love our sons and we raise our daughters. You know, we don't lose black girls on that. We understand it. I understood when my mother was like, "I got to make sure I got to make sure your brothers are okay." I grew up with that because I know you're going to be all right. Now, was I worried about my father every day? And will they kill him? Will they not? Because we lived with the police outside and private security inside. But no, my mother was, I got to make sure that your brothers are okay because you're going to make it. No one asked how I was doing. I'm sitting up here 100 pounds overweight. But you're going to make it because you've got straight A's. You're okay. And I'm saying that black girls and black women get lost in the sauce, and it's not fair.
Absolutely.
But black men do not ask that question about me. And when I say me, I mean the collective me, the collective we.
But how come there is a gender divide even in that?
I can love my sons and I can raise my daughters, and I'm okay with that. But the minute I get a little bit of shine in a sexist, patriarchal society, then it's a problem. What's up with that?
Okay, so I look at this discussion.
It's like we live in a patriarchy. We live in a patriarchy that is layered by racism. There's this thing called misogynoir, a
Yes.
patriarchy layered by racism. And Black men also discriminated against. Don't look at the disadvantages that Black women face. I'm not going to go there. CK probably has a better handle on this than I do, but the entirety of the bullspit around Fannie Willis, that this sister had to be dissected, her sex life dissected, because they would not have done that to a white woman. People are able to treat, and we could go case by case by case in the ways that Black women are ill treated. And what pains me more than anything is the extent to which Black men are all too often silent around the mistreatment of Black women. And this Black girl magic trope, I mean, it's kind of fun, and it makes brothers feel excluded, which it shouldn't. But the fact is that brothers do not understand nor articulate what patriarchy and misogynoir does to Black women. And brothers need to stand up for Black women. Simply stand up for Black women. Whatever little resentments there are because of tropes, and we know there are tropes, all kind of tropes. Still, what we know is that Black women earn less than Black men by and large, are more likely to be discriminated against, are more likely to be ignored in the criminal justice system, or more. We could just go down the list of what happens to Black women that people don't pay attention to.
Lose $1 million at the very least over the course of our work lives because of the pay gap. Fight for me.
Okay, so just I've been listening because I look at this from similar but different lenses. First, I'm a divorced woman, professional woman, who has played a very significant role in raising my two grown men with a very, very participatory father, a very, very participatory grandfather, uncles, all of that, a Black family structure that embraced us, embraced these children, despite the fact that the two adults decided they no longer wanted to remain married. That's number one. I think there are many people who raise their Black boys, who raise their Black girls where the parents are not together for whatever reason, and they circle around them in a village. A lot of people have been raised in that environment. It may not be as common. I'm not in any way, shape, or form discounting the women-led households, Black women-led households in this country, where maybe the father is not participatory, because that's a reality of our community. But what makes me angrier than angry, and where I say where are my heart pills, is why we are allowing anyone else in any other community to define and divide us in terms of Black men and Black women. That's what bothers me more than anything. Case in point, we talked about, we know, I mean, you it doesn't matter what you do, whether you're professional, whether you're not professional, as a Black woman, you understand the rules of engagement. Sometimes I can't tell, and I'm being very honest, whether the type of discrimination, which is one of my practice areas, that I experience on a day-to-day basis is because I'm Black, or if I'm a woman. Sometimes it's a combination. Sometimes people never get to the Black part because they will completely annihilate me in their minds based on the fact that I'm a woman. Mm-hmm. So these are realities that we all know, but that doesn't mean that our Black families have to be splintered. When I say families, I don't necessarily mean in one family. I just mean collectively as a community, which is what I'm seeing now in the political field. And that is what upsets me when I talk about politics. Without a question, Dr. Malveaux, what Fani Willis has gone through and is going through is in large part because she is a Black woman. Nathan Wade also went through something too, but it all emanates from the desire to take her out. I think they're going to be unsuccessful. But what we saw, much like on a slave block, was a woman where they attempted to persecute and prosecute her, who turned it right around. We don't need to talk about Black women magic. That's Fani Willis, an exceptionally talented district attorney from Fulton County, who is doing what she felt was right and what she felt she needed to do for the citizens of Fulton County. Period. Under discussion. Is she perfect? No. Did she exercise bad judgment by having a relationship with Nathan Maine? It's not illegal. Maybe it's not a best practices, but to have this charade of a show around that and then try to reach a conclusion that she should be taken off of a case because of it is absolutely positively ridiculous and ludicrous. And for Black men, or Black women, for anyone to take the position that she's getting what she deserved because she asked for it, because she dared to to follow an indictment by a grand jury and to bring this case against a former president of the United States. She asked for this along with other women, such as Letitia James, such as Judge Tanya Chutkan, that they asked for, and all the other Black women who happen to be at this time in history in this position and are part of the litigation process with the former president of the United States. For any Black man, woman, child, anyone to take that position, I think is unfortunate, is really terrible, and it's allowing us to let other people define what happens in our community. That is the most ridiculous thing in my impression, although I respect those who take that position for about 55 different reasons, but I'll underscore 3. 1, a judge does not select which cases she or he has. Cases are assigned. So let's take out all the Black women judges who people consistently criticized for getting involved in certain cases when there's certain decisions that are made. So let's take it out of that because they are assigned cases by and large. That's how you get these cases. It's not where you say, oh yes, I want to preside over the case involving former President Donald Trump. I would dare say that many people would not want to preside over the cases involving former President Donald Trump. Similarly, the judge that's presiding in Fulton County, it's just one of those things, a random selection. There were I know many judges in Fulton County on the Superior Court who could have been selected, but this one was selected. That's just the way it works. So let's take the judges out of the equation. Now let's talk about the prosecutors. District Attorney Fonnie Willis, yes, she did choose to take this case before a grand jury based on what was dropped in her lap as the first action of when she first was elected. And by the way, all of this evidence had accumulated prior to her being district attorney. First action. So now she's going to be prosecuted by those in her community because she's doing what any prosecutor in Fulton County should do. And if anyone has any doubt about that, she just had the courage to do it, then they should watch again that case, those cases involving those 2 election officials in Fulton County and what they had to live with. That's what people need to think about. And it's not right, it's wrong. This is voter suppression, voter degradation, just trying to prevent people from getting to the polls and prevent people from administering the voting mechanism appropriately, stealing elections. That's what this is about. So all this other sideshow in part is because A, she's a woman and she's a Black woman. Now let's talk about Letitia James, Attorney General Letitia James, the top attorney in the state of New York, who has risen through the system. It was previously Andrew Cuomo, who then became governor. It's been previously a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of lawyers, but this is her turn. And on her watch, someone who has violated New York law more and engaged according to the evidence and according to, by the way, what the judgment is, the termination, one of the most significant fraudulent schemes in the state of New York is the former President Donald Trump. So she brought a case based on evidence that accumulated way before he was even president. And now she's going to be demonized by men in our community or anyone in our community and saying that she deserves all the criticism, all the death threats, all the things she brought it upon herself by doing her job. No, sir, no, ma'am. I think that is wrong. But again, the problem is I don't like that our community is being divided. Black men over here, Black women over here. Since when do we have these kinds of divisions? During slavery, there were a lot of people who were pitting us against each other, but we always came together, and this should be no different. Articulate our dissatisfaction, articulate that we don't feel good about being, when the Black girl magic, why don't anybody tell me anything about Black girl magic? No one ever said that what I do, what I've accomplished, what I've done as a lawyer is because of Black girl magic. What they have said is that I stand on the shoulders of men and women who opened the doors and paved the way for me. Yeah, I hear that. I ain't never heard anybody say it's because of black girl magic. I don't care what kind of magic it is. How about the hours, the dedication, the work, the leaving no stones unturned that I do every single time I go into a courtroom, every time I take a case? How about that? That has to do with me and me standing on the shoulders of people like a Willie Gary who showed me how to do it at the highest levels. So we need to stop with this divisiveness and call it what it is. It's BS. I'm not going to say that. And we need to be about the business politically of coming together, because this is going to be a significant rift. In Georgia, we saw, unfortunately, Stacey Abrams, when she ran for governor the first time, the reason why she didn't become good, if 12% of the black men voted for her opponent,
That's right.
and many of them don't have an explanation the first for why they just couldn't vote for her. Didn't like her hair, didn't like the way she looked, didn't like something.
Mm-hmm.
If she had really only received 5% of that vote, she would have been the governor of the state of Georgia the first time she ran. So we don't need to allow other people to define. No other community, by the way, no other community allows others to define who they are and how they're going to conduct themselves, and the story that's being told, other than us. But we have the power to put a stop to it. So Santita, everything for me emanates from that. We have exceptionally incredible role models like your dad, Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Santita, I'd like to ask White and Daryl a question, if I might.
Hold on, Dwight. Let her finish her point.
So I'm finishing right now. So I'm not being. I actually am being critical. I am trying to be as respectful of people's opinions and views, because everybody's entitled to their opinions. But I think we got to look at a big picture now, as we always do as Black people. Look, we're not being manipulated. We are allowing people to manipulate us. We're allowing it to happen, and that, I think, needs to stop. I think it really does. And let's stop demonizing Black women who are in positions, who have worked their way through the system, or who have earned that, who stand on the shoulders of great men and women. We don't need to demonize them. We don't need to demonize any Black men who have attained that.
Santita, if I could ask Dwight, I want to ask Dwight and Daryl a question, because as I'm listening to CK and also thinking about some things, I saw a piece. I think I was on a plane coming from Egypt, but I saw a piece that was talking about how the orange man believes that he has more sway with Black men because of his criminal record, and that he believes that his mugshot was something that, I mean, I think it's BS, but I want to hear.
Let's flesh it out, because what he was saying was, because Black men have been involved in the judicial system, that Black men can relate to him.
That gangster style, thuggish, rubbish repertoire I talked about.
Yeah, and that is insulting and offensive.
You know, but I think it's also he's talking about being unfairly prosecuted, because that is what he feels.
And by the way, there were some of the surrogates that called onto my radio show a couple of times and said, well, Donald Trump is being treated like Dr. King. What?
What a horrible comparison.
Let us not even begin that discussion, and how offensive, man, woman, child, offensive that comment is. That he feels like he can relate to Black men because he's in the criminal justice. For him to even articulate that, to feel emboldened and empowered to articulate that right there should tell us what his presidency will be like. And I think, Santita, this morning when we were talking about this issue, there was a lot of consternation, a lot of debate, because I felt that if former President Donald Trump does win this time, he's going to demonize all Black women, put us all in together, because he's going to make
the people who he felt made him suffer pay. Yes. Unfortunately, that's part of the game too. I'm not saying it's right. But people do that. More people exact revenge than not. It's unfortunate, but
Delano Squires actually brought up one of the points as to why the Democrats are losing Black men, the Monahan report. And he basically said it's because so many Black women who are running for office, like Stacey Abrams, they tend to assume they are entitled to every vote within our particular community. And that way, when they treat even the slightest sign of defection as an emergency, that's that's what causes so much of the division. I don't know if Attorney Jones feels that he should vote for a black woman because she's a black woman, but he should definitely be voting for the issues. But do we really ask our black men, are you voting because she's big? Are you voting because of her hair? Are you really voting on the issues? Do we really even have
some of the things that have been said have been inappropriate coming from black men, but the other piece of it, I saw that piece that whatever that man's name was, it was very faultily reasoned, in my opinion. I think it was a piece of garbage, and I think he was basically justifying his own misogyny. But I do want to hear from.
You have to speak for all black men, Attorney Daryl Jones, because I don't know what Dwight is right now. So shoulder your responsibility.
Dwight is around.
I'm sure that Dwight is going to be coming right back in a moment, but I have no problem stepping up to speak. Look, when they start saying that black men are going to identify with Trump because Trump now has gone through the legal system that he's been, I guess unjustifiably prosecuted is the phraseology that they try to, the theory they try to throw out, that somehow, black men now will identify with this because we're always, prosecuted or something along those lines. It's that same narrative that they've always tried to run out, every black man's a criminal. That in essence is what they're trying to say. And, and I take great exception to that, phenomenal, just great exception to that thought process. The other piece that you try to throw out, what does Trump now do? He comes out with golden tennis shoes, right? And these golden tennis shoes are supposed to sell to the young black guys. The young black folks just want golden tennis shoes. I'm not a fan of it. I think that, black men look at the issues. The black men are going to look at, one of the things, I think it was Dr. Malvo was talking to her brother. One of the things that her brother was saying was about entrepreneurship and business, being able to make money, being able to be given the fair opportunity to be able to succeed. We're not necessarily looking for a handout, but we are looking for a hand up because we know what we've gone through. So in terms of the black male experience, we're not trying to put anybody down, but we are trying to put food on our table for our families and provide for our loved ones. And I think that if we allow anyone to control our narrative about who we are and what we represent by saying, well, this is going to identify with black men because he has a mug shot. So his mug shot, every black man has a mug shot. We cannot allow that to be the narrative. And, the response to that has got to be, no, it's not about a mugshot. It's about what policies are you putting in place? What issues are you standing for? Are you going to be someone that's going to represent what I need to have for my family, to help protect my family? And the same with, I have absolutely no problems supporting black women in any position, so long as they're supporting the issues that I believe are of greatest need to our community. I'm not going to support a Tim Scott just because he's black. I mean, Tim Scott, I think, is the antithesis of everything that the African American community needs. So when we start looking at that, when we start looking at issues like that, that's when I say that, is Tim Scott going to say that he can identify better with Trump now because he has this mugshot? He's going to come around walking around in these golden Trump tennis shoes? No, he's not going to say any of that. So I think that, we've got to control the narrative. And so long as we're buying into this narrative that that black men are going to support Trump or can identify now with him because he's one of us, because he's got a record, because he's been unfairly prosecuted, because he's been accused of whatever has been accused. Wrong story, wrong beginning point. I don't even want to hear it. I think that what black men want, and I agree with Dr. Melvo's brother on another point with regards to the immigration and migration. That's a huge issue for black men because it deals with our ability to provide for our own families. It deals with our issue, and I don't, perhaps as black women too. I don't know. I've never been a woman, right? But I can tell you from the black male perspective, when I hear about folks in Chicago being given housing, being given, all this other stuff that are migrants that have illegally come into the country, and I have relatives that are homeless, and I have relatives that are hungry, and I have relatives that are not benefiting from education. Here in Maryland, they're now talking about having the illegal immigrants, those that are migrating, have access to our health care, so that we would end up paying for the health care. I want to be certain that my home is taken care of. I'm not against anybody else being taken care of, but I believe you take care of home first. And I also believe so very strongly that we've got to control this narrative. We've got to control what we're talking about and what's being said about black men. Saying this piece with black men in the criminal records identifying with Trump, nah. What I do think is that you're going to find a lot of black men identifying with the strength of the character, because we do have a thing, and I guess that's the machismo that Dr. Malveaux was speaking of, Dr. Malveau's brother was speaking of. There is a machismo factor that's there. There is a strength factor that's there. But that same strength factor can be found in a black woman. Black women have shown themselves exceedingly strong. So the machismo factor is there, but it's just a strength. It's just not a weakness, and it's not exclusive to men. It's to the person. It's to the individual, and that's what I think we look for in our leaders, is someone that is strong.
So, if Attorney Jones, if Stacey Abrams had made the top issues of her discussion criminal justice reform, economic opportunity for black men, educational opportunity for black men, would that change whether or not those black men would still vote for her? I would say no. I think that there are so many simple-minded black men out there that are voters that still wouldn't vote for Stacey Abrams because she was a big girl and because she had her hair the way that she did. I really think there are enough people that are simple-minded that we wouldn't have gotten that 5% that Attorney C.K. Hoffler was talking about, even if we had changed the narrative.
Yeah, I think that there are some black men out there that are that narrow-minded, as you're laying out. There's I mean that includes every race. That's not just black men, okay? And black women, everybody, white women, all of them are going to find those narrow-minded people. So that's not exclusive to black men. But I think that in the Stacey Abrams race, and I'm very careful with the Stacey Abrams race and talking about it, because I don't live in Georgia. So I don't know what seeds had been planted prior to the election. I don't know what her relationship was like with black men all along. I mean, if there was always a strong relationship that was there, that it wasn't to a point that when she's now running, that she realizes she needs the black male vote, and there's some other changes in positions that she's taken. I just don't know the story, and that's why I don't weigh very heavily in that area. I weigh more heavily in talking about Brian Kemp and what he did to suppress the black voters and making it more difficult for them to register. Because had he not done all that and stopping black voters from being out there, Stacey Abrams would be the governor in Georgia, and we wouldn't be having this conversation.
But you know what I found disturbing? When Stacey Abrams, when she ran the second time, that she had to CK and Dr. Malveaux and Attorney Sanat and Attorney Jones, that she had to address black men in particular, as if she had been ignoring black men, and she had not been. That is not what black women do, for the most part. I mean, I know some of us do that, but that was not what she was doing. I think, when a black man decides to run, black women typically are all in. We're all in, because we figure if he wins, we win.
Mm-hmm.
But when I want to pastor a church, and black women push back against that, that's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just a pushback on black women. And there are studies that show that we are invisible. I mean, you look at the maternal mortality rates, black women are struggling out here. That's not being addressed. We love our sons and we raise our girls. And I'm just asking us to love our daughters as we raise these boys so that they can become men.
And the other piece of it, Santita, I mean, I think CK addressed it a bit when she talked about her being a big girl. The gender.
You're breaking up, Zora Malveaux.
You're breaking up.
I didn't hear that. The gender what?
Okay, I think she froze
at this point.
But
I do agree with you, Santita, that
our brains
raise our boys. I think we're having a difficult
black men and women.
Okay,
but there
you
were
froze.
Who talked
I need you to start what you were saying again, because you froze.
Right, we couldn't hear you.
Okay, what I was saying is that CK talked about Stacey being a big girl. What she really was speaking to is the gender stereotypes that are imposed on black women.
Mm-hmm.
What if she had been lighter? What if her hair had been straighter? Would she have been more acceptable?
Yes.
In addressing black men, she did not address those stereotypes. She addressed the fact that, look, I care about you guys too. And not even too, because she never, I mean, her career so stellar, so much contribution. But again, we have allowed, frankly, massa to invade our brains so that we have,
Mhm.
uh, we feel some kind of way about Black women who look some kind of way. And we
Well, I
should
mean,
not
wait.
do that.
The two athletes that Attorney Jones highlighted, it was not lost on me that you were highlighting black athletes who were married to brown skinned women.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a funny little story. George Bush's inauguration in 1989, right? A friend of ours was an ambassador. You remember Ambassador Yusufu, CK, and Dr. Malvo. He said he was sitting at the UN and they were watching the inauguration. They said, "Oh, we understand Jesse's there. Jesse's there. Really, really, really. Well, how can we find him?" They said he'll be the one with the black wife.
Mm.
Oh my God.
And he said, just then, your beautiful brown skinned mother popped up on the screen. Colorism is a real thing. I mean, and
Very
we have to deal with that. I mean, because look, I remember the cover article on Michelle Obama, the meaning of Michelle. The first thing he started with was her color.
mm-hmm.
I mean, because we flip it. We can resent people because they're light, and we can embrace them because they're light. We can resent people because they're dark and embrace them. It's all crazy. It's
But you know
like you
what it
said,
is?
Dr. Malvo, masses in the brain.
Masses in the brain. And that's what we have to basically fight. We have to be willing to confront each other about those stereotypes and say, what is this about? Because what we end up with is a fractured Black community, fractured around nothing. It's like you go back to history and talk about the house slaves and the field slaves. Well, nobody chose to be a house slave.
Well, some people did, but I hear you.
Okay. But I do agree with Attorney Jones when he was saying that
I think
the priorities are
Black
different for Black men and they're different for Black women. And we do need to try to figure out a way to, change the narrative so that our priorities don't sound as polarizing as they currently are, because they're really not polarizing. We all agree that Black men should have an opportunity to take care of the home. Black men should have jobs and start at the same finish line that we're starting at, or the starting line that we're starting at. Black men shouldn't have to constantly worry about if I go out at night. In fact, my friend just texted me. I broke my ankle, so I can't drive. So he's driving my car to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. But the specific thing he said is, I'm not driving your Mercedes Benz at night because I don't want to get pulled over. Do I think about that? No, not really. But it's true. Why do they have to think about that kind of thing? It's because they are being attacked for that kind of thing. When it comes to immigration, I obviously have a different opinion, being that I'm very active in the community and immigration advocacy is something that I do. I don't see the immigrants coming in and taking the jobs, but I do see within the immigrant community that the Black immigrants are always being ignored. Black men, Black women, they're always being ignored. When people think of immigration and they think about people bringing either trades or skills that we currently don't have in our community
Mhm.
to this, I guess you can say, the American tapestry, very often the Black tradesmen, the Black men that are tradesmen, are not getting hired. It is the lighter skin. And so colorism becomes a problem. So I don't know how we can change the narrative in order to include these Black immigrants in the narrative so that they're not necessarily being excluded from the fact that even though they're migrants, they're still not getting them jobs either.
Well, they
Just
have to
like,
But
understand
this
the
is
black
all about
experience.
predatory capitalism. This is about predatory capitalism and pitting people
Absolutely.
against each other to basically extract maximum profits. And so when we look at, let's go back to New Orleans post Katrina.
I've
Um,
got 2 minutes.
all I would say then is that look at who got what wages. Union
Mhm.
white people got very high wages. Non-union people of color got low wages. Immigrant who are working under the books were getting the minimum wage. So the companies that had the contracts to clean up, companies that the contracts to clean up, basically were extracting excess profits by paying the people at the bottom as little as $5 an hour. Union
Well, I mean, and the games that are being played, Newt Gingrich telling black immigrants that you work
black
harder and you're
guys,
smarter.
40 an hour. But
Come on. We need to get we were all brought over here on the same colonial project and it just stopped. I mean, we should not be fighting each other. To stop. It's not working. Everybody, I've got about a minute left here, so I'm gonna have to close things out. But I do hope that I hope you've enjoyed today's discussion. It was a very frank discussion because there's a gender gap in American politics. And of course, like everything else in the Black community, it is amplified. The old expression is, if white folks have a cold, Black folks have pneumonia. But misogyny cuts across all colors, and it has to stop. Every human being should be allowed to actualize their potential. Everyone. We're all poorer for all that we're not allowed to be and do. We all are. So, well, come on, everybody. Let's come up with something different. Let's come up with something different. There's no one more brilliant than Dr. Malvo. There's no one more brilliant than you, Attorney Sanat. No one more brilliant than you, Attorney C.K. Hoffman. No one more brilliant than you, Attorney Jones, and Dwight McKee. And we need to acknowledge that, support each other, and whoever gets through the door, let me push you and let's keep it moving. Because if you make it, I make it. That's just how I see it. Period. We've got to look at it that way. Got to look at it that way. We can win, and we got to win together.
When you rise, I rise. Yep.
Look, that's it. That's it. That's what I saw my mother and father do. Is my mother a great speaker? Yes. But my mother said, okay, she and my father came up with an agreement so that he could do what he needed to do, and she did what she needed to do, and they're all grateful 60 plus years later. It all worked out. If we work together. They got 5 fairly sane kids, and they got a good life. Because my father never said, this is my money that I'm making. Never. He said, what your mother and I are doing for you is, she has a role, I have a role, and we together are your parents, period. So let's understand that. I love you, everybody. Have a great one. AM 950 Radio, the Santita Jackson Show. Have a great one.
Thank you so much.
I love you.